Hello, welcome in. Let me know if you can hear me, if you are staying for 2 seconds. I have to do my sound checks on both TikTok and YouTube, make sure that audio is working on both those sides. So if you can be so kind as to say, hey, I hear you, that'd be fantastic. If not, smash a like button for a second. Give me something on the flyby. Welcome to those who are joining in on the TikTok side. Again, just trying to look for a sound check, see if anybody can hear me. Looks like people are dropping in and out too quick to be able to stay and help me out. So we'll see how that goes. I'll wait. The frustrations of getting started. Welcome to those who are dropping in. We're just getting started. We're going to get live or go officially into whatever we're going to do here in about 11 minutes. I'm a little early. I guess we don't need to wait for the start because this is kind of an unofficial not a huge scripted event today. I usually go live at noon now Pacific Standard Time, but I'm ahead of that curve by 10 minutes. I usually start about 10 minutes early. So settle in. Let me know if I have sound on TikTok. Hopefully by now you would have told me, hey, your mouth is moving, but we can't hear you. So I'm assuming that you haven't, because you haven't said you can't hear me, you must be able to hear me. But even better so, if somebody would let me know that you can actually hear the audio. And I'm also broadcasting on YouTube, but YouTube hasn't had anybody jump in over there, so I can't confirm the sound check on YouTube. But hopefully the hearts mean that you hear something. So again, just say, yes, I hear you. That'd be fantastic. Can you hear me? Anybody? Class, Bueller. Sound is good. Thank you so much, Holly. I had to beg for that. Thank you so much for letting me know the sound is okay on TikTok. Now I'll stop asking about TikTok. If anybody joins on YouTube, I can get a sound check on YouTube. But for now, we're good. So I'm going to assume all is well in Huntsville or whatever the hell it is. I don't know if you're familiar with my show. I can't remember, Holly. Your name looks familiar. Maybe you have been joined in before, but I'm the Devil's Advocates. Got a channel on TikTok and YouTube. I'm trying to make a regular thing of Tuesdays and Thursdays at this time to talk about the cases that I follow, primarily Idaho 4 and the Bryan Kohberger. You know me from Birdie Bombshell. That's amazing. That's great. Birdie is amazing. Birdie and I cannot get our collective shit together to go live anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen for the future. He's expressed the desire still to do something on Monday, but we can't seem to get our shit together. We've missed 2 Mondays in a row. So we'll see what happens. I'm still working on getting that to happen, but yeah, thank you for dropping in from Birdie's show. And I think when the two of us go together, it's kind of cool. But he's got a busy calendar. Like, he is on a lot. So I'm working on getting on with Birdie again as soon as I can. He's gone down a lot of rabbit holes. I'm not even going down yet. So I'd love to talk to him about his latest things and have him catch me up on camera and give my thoughts on the things that he shares with me. So I'm looking forward to an opportunity to go live with Birdie again. And I appreciate all you people who have been coming over and telling me that you have found me by watching Birdie, because that's very cool. Very cool. And likewise, I know some of my followers have started to watch Birdie on a regular basis now. So it's a very cool symbiotic thing when we can pull that off. So again, this is going to be open Q&A on the 2 cases that I primarily follow. Now, you could ask other questions about other cases like Karen Reed or P. Diddy and stuff like that, and we could potentially talk about those because I don't have an agenda. My main focus this week has been a lot on Koberger because nothing's really happening in the Luigi space to talk about. Koberger, I'm finishing up a book review of Howard Bloom's When the Night Comes Falling, and I've been doing chapter after chapter reviews. I posted a new one this morning. I've got 2 of them also recorded that are scheduled to release tomorrow and the next day. So I've been doing a lot about that, going back and looking at some of the old videos in the Idaho 4, re-examining things, looking at what we were told about whether the door was open or closed to Xana's room, all those things. Re-examining a lot of old theories and re-asking questions again and going through Howard Bloom's book. And so yesterday, when I had no plan for the show on Monday night at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the conversation took off on Luigi, surprisingly enough. Only surprising not because Luigi isn't a great story, but because there's nothing new and has been nothing new on Luigi. And somehow we talked about for Luigi for about an hour and 20 minutes. So I am open to talk about either Luigi Mangione's case or Bryan Kohberger's case. If you follow my channel and you know a little bit about my show and you want my opinion on one of those two cases or some piece of information, please fire questions at me. You can start now if you'd like. I don't officially usually start for another 6 minutes, but again, I have no official monologue to go through and nothing official on the thing. So you might as well fire questions at us now if you'd like to do so. So I'm just kind of hanging out, watching chat. Nobody is on the YouTube side. So I'm monitoring it, but I assume that it's working. But if one of you happens to be one of these people who have watched me on YouTube and TikTok, it would be amazing if you could check just to look to see if the YouTube stream is working in this audio. Today is supposed to be the last day for prosecution to hand over discovery in the Luigi Mangione case. I didn't see the deadline on that. Let's shoot from the hip. Why did Steve Goncalves say the door was open if it wasn't? I believe Steve Goncalves' original, Holly, I believe Steve Goncalves' original comment for 2 years that we all believed it was closed was Steve Goncalves told us the door was closed. That was partly his explanation for why Dylan didn't say anything, is the door was closed and Dylan didn't see anything. The revelation now that the door was open and that Dylan saw Xana laying on the floor is relatively new information. So I think, unless you've got a new source, Steve Goncalves was actually the primary source of the door was closed narrative for about 2 years. Okay, so Holly, you knew that. You just worded it wrong. Yes. Yeah, good question. Right? That is one of the $1 million questions in this case. Why did Steve Goncalves tell people the door was closed when we now know that the door was open? Did Steve Goncalves, one, not know either way whether the door was closed or shut, and Steve just makes up on his own what he feels like should be the case and then tells everybody that that's the fact in the case? Two, was it possible that Steve Goncalves was told by somebody that the door was closed, and then later on it comes out that it was open? And then we have to ask ourselves, who told Steve that it was closed? So, yeah, those two, the idea that Steve Goncalves told people, and we've been running on the assumption that the door was closed and that it somehow excused the 8-hour no phone call to 911, and now we find out that the door was open, we need to go back and rethink about that. Why did Steve Goncalves tell us that the door was closed? Was that fact that Steve was supposedly relating? Or was it just he makes up things and then states them as fact and everybody goes by what Steve says because he's close to the case and it's his daughter and therefore he wouldn't be telling any lies or fabricating or making shit up, so we have to believe Steve when he says things? I don't know. It's a good question. I wonder if he knew. Yeah, I'm beginning to have a problem with Steve Goncalves. Like, I sympathize for the man. I say it a million times. I sympathize for the man, but the more he talks, the more he's losing credibility for me, because things that Steve says turns out to either not be true or has to be recorrected. It seems all too often Steve is telling you how he feels about the matter, not what he actually knows about the matter. So now I'm beginning to say, maybe we should stop taking so seriously things that Steve says in the matter, sadly enough. I'm going to get my glasses on to read all these comments. So the dorkiness is going to come out so I can read my comments a little bit better. Right. It's like he puts opinions out as facts. That's what I think, Jess. That's what I think. I think Steve Goncalves, I know people. I've got friends who are really good at stating their opinions like they're facts, and most people will then, because if you're a confidence person and you say things with confidence, people tend to believe that you wouldn't talk that firmly if you weren't certain. So that confidence leads to an air of respectability, and you're like, oh, well, he must be telling the truth because you listen to him. He sounds super confident with the answer. Maybe that's all it is. Steve gives opinions, but he states them as fact, and people, hey, welcome from Seattle. I used to live in Seattle, so good to hear from you. I miss Seattle in a lot of ways, so it's good to see you checking in from Seattle. But yeah, I think a lot of times Steve Goncalves is one of these people that says things as fact, and if you say things factly enough and you sound confident, people tend to believe it must be fact. Would the fact that the cops handled Luigi's arrest badly help him during trial? All right, this is starting out just like Monday. We're going to bounce back and forth between Luigi Mangione and Bryan Kohberger. So, would the fact that the cops handled Luigi's arrest badly help him during trial? The short answer is yes, it's going to help. The long answer is it's not going to be a showstopper. First of all, keep in mind that a judge has not ruled on whether or not that arrest was legal or not. His attorney, Luigi Mangione's attorney, Thomas Dickey in Pennsylvania, has written his complaint about why that was an illegal arrest. Karen Ignifilo in New York has added in as well that was an illegal arrest. The prosecution in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has argued that it was a legal arrest, and a judge has not yet ruled on whether it was legal or illegal. Now, if the judge rules, which it hasn't been ruled on yet, that it was an illegal arrest, will that help Luigi Mangione? Absolutely, because now all of a sudden everything that was obtained in that arrest, i.e. a weapon, bullets, a so-called manifesto, a confession letter if such thing existed, cash allegedly if it existed, all items in that are tossed out and can't be admitted into court. And if that's the case, then their case is significantly weakened, but it's not the end, because they're going to claim that they've got him on camera, they've got his movements tracked, he knows he was there, they know that he was the shooter. They're going to make that case with or without those items. But certainly the case is hampered if they don't get to keep that evidence because of the arrest. Good question. He has a persona that makes you think he's knowledgeable. That's jumping back to Steve Goncalves. Yes, Steve Goncalves is a confidence man. He speaks with confidence, like he knows what he's talking about, and a lot of people, put a lot of faith in confidence men. So I would say that. I heard the judge say that a knife would be a display in a display case. I wonder if they do have the knife. Jess. People have been speculating about that about a lot. I do not believe necessarily that it's the knife. I believe it is a replica knife. That's what I believe. It's a replica knife. I don't believe it is the knife. There has never been anything actually put out that says they have found the knife. I think that would be headline news across the country, that they found the knife, and where they found the knife would be all over the news, especially if the knife came from Bryan Kohberger's belongings or someplace where they could trace that Bryan Kohberger had been and therefore dumped the knife. So my logical brain, my critical thinking brain says, if they had the knife, it would be mainstream media all over it, all day, every day, and twice on Sunday, as Hitler says. God, I love that quote. What a great quote by Hitler. Anyways, but the point being is that I think it's a replica knife. But his wife always looked at him like he was BS. If you're talking about Christy Goncalves looking at Steve Goncalves like he's BS, I do believe that if that's what you're saying, I agree. Christy and Steve are not on the same page about what happened to Kaylee and how it happened. I agree with that basic sentiment, if that's what you're saying. Jury nullification. What are are there high chances of Luigi getting jury nullification? Simple answer from my perspective. I am not an attorney and I am not an expert. But you asked for my opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion. Is there a high chance for jury nullification? No. Is there a chance for jury nullification? Absolutely. I believe the jury nullification very much could happen in this case. Is it a high chance? No. That's my guess. My guess, as I stated last night, the same question came up last night, so good for you. Kudos for you asking the same question that's on everybody's mind. Jury nullification, is it a real thing? Yes, it's a real thing. Could it really happen in this case? Yes, it really could happen in this case. Is it likely to happen in this case? Probably not likely, but it could happen. More than likely, my guess is, again, hung jury, probably twice, and then potentially basically giving up on it. That is one likely scenario. The other likely scenario is life in prison without the possibility of parole and no death penalty. That's the other likely scenario. So if I were a betting man, I would put it 50-50 on Luigi Mangione spends life in prison without the possibility of parole, and that's what he gets as his sentence. That's guess, and that's not saying, that is not, let's be clear, that's not saying I'm saying Luigi Mangione is guilty. I'm saying that's what I think that could happen in the court of law. A likely conviction is going to happen in that case. And if it doesn't, it would be because it's a hung jury. Jury nullification, if you're a believer in the concept, let me be careful how I say this because I don't want to be accused of anything that I'm not saying. So I'm going to just try and tell you factually. if you were a believer that Luigi Mangione could have done it, but that somehow, and this is a theoretical comment, that somehow it was justifiable or self-defense, then the big statement that people like that would want to have is jury nullification. It's the statement that, yeah, he did it, but we don't care. That would be a huge statement and a landmark type court case. What does jury nullification mean? Okay, jury nullification. Thank you for asking, Holly. This is like a repeat of last night. Here's jury nullification. Jury nullification is essentially an implicit right of a jury. What it means is, so juries are not informed about jury nullification. They're not instructed about jury nullification. It is implied that juries should understand they have the right to nullify a verdict. What does that mean? What it means is a jury can look at the facts of the law. Do you think this person did this crime as written by this law? Yes or no? Yes. We agree that person did what is written in the law not to be done, and they did it, right? Then the next question is, and what is your verdict? If the verdict is, yes, he did the crime, but we hold him not guilty, that is what we call jury nullification. It's essentially a statement by the jury that the law was unjust, or that the law doesn't correctly deal with the situation at hand. Technically, by letter of the law, they committed the crime, but the law didn't cover this particular scenario, or the law is unjust. I gave the example last night. I'll give it again. In America, there was a time when we had slavery. During those times, certain states would have laws against harboring slaves. If a slave were to escape, right? If a slave was to escape and another citizen protected and hid that slave from their slave owners coming to get them, that was against the law. People went to trial in America for harboring slaves and keeping slaves from getting recaptured by their owners. And those were jury nullification cases a lot of times. What happened was, the jury would have to admit, yes, there is a law in the books that says you can't harbor a slave. And yes, this person did it. They broke the law. And no, we don't find them guilty because the law is unjust in the first place. And so that was jury nullification. Same kind of thing would happen in this Luigi case. If the jury decides that Luigi Mangione did it, but he did it for noble reasons because he was trying to save lives, or he did it for self-defense reasons because, of something, or defense of others because, again, trying to save lives. If the jury says, yeah, he did it, but this law doesn't take into effect that he did it because he was trying to save lives, the jury could say, yes, he did it, and he's not guilty. And that would be a massive, massive landmark case. So great questions. Looking for some more questions on the chat. Yeah, the YouTube's super quiet. I think the chat's working on YouTube. We've got a few people. Okay, we got a couple people on YouTube. Bad time of day or something. Or I'm just incredibly boring. But if anybody on YouTube could give me a sign that you hear me, that would be fantastic, because I see nothing in chat going on YouTube. But so therefore, I'll focus more on TikTok. Any other questions going on? Again, I'm just, well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you, Holly. Thank you for thinking I'm not boring. Any other questions on either Luigi Mangione or Bryan Kohberger on the TikTok side or YouTube side? I'm hanging out here for a little while longer. I usually go an hour, so I'm planning on going to the bottom of the hour, but I got started 10 minutes early and it's kind of low, so we'll see. Thank you for the likes, by the way. Whoever's smashing the hell out of the like, thank you very much. That does help a lot. It really does help a lot, and it doesn't cost you anything other than maybe some finger cramps if you do it a lot. So, would Karen Agnifilo have posted what they got in Discovery today on the website? Well, I don't think so, but since you mentioned it, let's go to the website. You should be able to see it in TikTok, LuigiMangioneInfo.com. This is the website. I'll blow it up a little bit. Usually statements come out right at the bottom. So there it is. The last statement was from April 26th, so nothing new has been said there. The next court date is right here. If you see me highlighting it on the screen, looks like my screen isn't super centered correctly for YouTube or for TikTok. So no, I don't see anything on there. Would KFA have posted what they got in Discovery today? No, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Discovery is going to be enormous. There's an enormous amount of Discovery, and so she might make an announcement. She could potentially make an announcement. Hey, looks like we've got all the Discovery, or look, they still haven't provided all the Discovery. I know they've got more and they're not showing it. She might make a public statement like that, but telling you what she has received, that would take too long. So it might be a general statement. Hey, it looks like, and she might even give it numbers. You know, if she says, hey, look, today they turned over 2 terabytes of Discovery, and we're going to need time to look that over. She might give a statement like that. So good question. Those are my guesses. Yeah, several terabytes, I'm sure, is going to be the volume of that. Did she receive all Discovery? She will let us know today. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't. The Discovery process can be a little ongoing, right? So they're supposed to turn over everything that they have, and hopefully they have turned over. I just saw that I wasn't seeing my chat in YouTube, so now I'm seeing it. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. who posted to YouTube that you can hear me. So I appreciate that very much. So again, I don't know that we're going to hear a lot about that. Looks like we got a pinned comment from one of my moderators. Did she receive all Discovery? Will she let us know today? Okay, yeah, that's what I was addressing. I don't know that we've got confirmation yet. I don't see anything on her website saying that she's confirming that she's received all Discovery. I don't even know if she would know if she's received all Discovery. I would imagine that maybe she would comment that they have turned over some Discovery if they have. Openings has joined in on YouTube. Thank you so much. Luigi Revolution, one of my moderators on YouTube and TikTok, is in the house. In the house, Luigi. Oh, sorry. All right. It's totally not appropriate for an old bastard like me. All right. Any other questions? I'm looking now. Now I'm really paying attention to YouTube and TikTok. Is there any comments, questions, feedback from the community? And again, if you're listening on YouTube and TikTok, there's going to be a massive delay. Somebody sent me a nice gift over here. Thank you so much for the gifts. I super appreciate it. It helps a lot. This is literally my job lately. It is a full-time job at plus. So Sailor Moon, you want me to go off on something? Like I go off on things a lot. I don't know if you watch. I don't know if you want to. Okay, so I don't know if you follow the Idaho 4 case, but I watched. I did a chapter. I'm doing chapter by chapter review of Howard Bloom's book When the Night Comes Falling, and I just covered and posted this morning at 8 o'clock or something like that this morning. My review of chapter 12 of Howard Bloom's book, When the Night Comes Falling, about the Corner Club. And I think I lost my shit. I lost my shit on that audio. So if you like hearing when I go off the rails, maybe check out that book review. Where can you buy that book? Amazon.com, the Kindle version, the paperback version. I think you can get both on Amazon.com. I don't know if I'm supposed to promote sites like that, but Amazon's got When the Night Comes Falling by Howard Bloom. And I'm rushing through that book a little bit, rushing as in not rushing the discussion, but reviewing more chapters, because now James Patterson, the famous novelist, is coming out with a book on Bryan Kohberger as well, on the Idaho 4, set to be released about 14 to 16 days before they start seating a jury in the Bryan Kohberger case. And so there's a brand new book by James Patterson, of all people, has written a book. And I bought the book. I got it on pre-sale. And so when it gets released, I will start reviewing that book. So I'm picking up the pace on reviewing Howard Bloom's book. Eclipso, thank you for the gifts. Jess, thanks for the gifts. You guys rock. Appreciate that so much. All right. And look, and Sailor, I would be remiss not to say thank you for sharing my live. That's amazing. Thank you so much. It's like pulling teeth to get people into these shows sometimes. And it feels like I've got a lot to say. But you guys that are faithful, and you guys give me a lot of encouragement when you'll tell me that you enjoy listening to the reviews and the rants and going off on the tangents. All right, what else do we got? Yeah, exactly. I love that you're sharing the love with people, and I've had people that didn't even have a clue who I am until somebody told them about me, so that's great. It's fantastic. Brooksville, Florida. Welcome in. Nicole Sears. Thank you so much on the YouTube side for saying hi from Florida. I think I've got more than one viewer in the Florida area, unless you're the same. No, you're not the same viewer from Florida. So I think I got multiple Florida viewers. Thank you so much for dropping in and saying hi. And thank you for the likes and getting things. Okay, throw me another question. Idaho 4 or Luigi Mangione. We're bouncing back and forth freely. I've got thoughts, and I would be happy to share my thoughts if you have questions that you want to hear my take on something. Thank you so much for on YouTube for saying that you like hearing my insights. Thank you so much. Questions or comments? Luigi Mangione, Idaho 4, Bryan Kohberger case. Anything you want to know about what's going on my website, my website, which is actually featured above up here. That's devilsadvocates.info. Also, of course, Devil's Advocates 2024 main channel on YouTube. Those are where most of my long form videos are at. I have a lot of long form videos because I'm a long-winded SOB. And I'm trying to finish off my vanilla orange Coke or whatever. Oh, look at that gift! That dog shaked his ass. Bam! The corgi shaked his ass. Thank you so much. That's amazing. I think they get to. Oh, do they get to? Oh no, they don't get to see the corgi ass on YouTube because I'm not mirroring my phone, so they don't get to see the gifts. I got to find a way to show that because that was cool as F. Anyways, very cool. Questions, come on, throw a question out there, or I will sit there and maybe I'll just start getting into what I was ranting about. I watched Harsh Reality lately, did a couple of videos. He's got some video snippets from his interview with JB Gunner, I think it was, and they're back and forth discussing again the early phone call, the 911 call, and the early reports we had that Xana's door was closed, and then later reports that it was open. Was Dylan lying? Was Dylan covering up? Were the girls involved or not involved? Is there other reasons why the girls might have covered something up but not actually been involved? All that discussion was going on today. Things that we could talk about it if nobody throws us a question out. Because again, I can do this all day. Apparently, I've learned the gift of gab. I can literally run my mouth almost nonstop without taking a breath. I don't know where I got it from, but anyways, I talk super fast. That's one of the things I've been told sometimes. Can you slow down? I'm like, you're going to have to use the times 1.5, no, the times 0.5 slowdown effect so you can watch this back. Tell us about the book so far when you get a chance. The Idaho 4 book from Howard Bloom. Holly, is that what you're asking about? And do you watch Nathan, the former investigator? His video today was about the eyes being the only thing that they can go on. If you're talking about the real Nathan Daly openings, then I do from time to time catch Nathan Daly's stuff. I don't see a lot of his stuff come on. I did see something about the eyes today. I didn't know that was Nathan's video. I haven't watched it yet, but I will certainly do that. There's a pinned comment. Tell us about the book so far when you get a chance. Yeah, that was what I was trying to confirm. Nicole, oh my gosh, thank you for the gift on the YouTube side. And yes, my sign is Pisces, by the way, for those who are into that. I've had a few people that are interested in wanting to talk about that thing, and we could save that for a different day, or we could talk about it a little bit now. But anyways, thank you so much for the gift and the support. That's amazing. Nathan Daly, yeah, he's great. I really dig his vibe a lot. So the book review from Howard Bloom, I will tell you this. Here's one of the things I will tell you about a summary, because I think that's what people were asking about, or Holly was asking about. Howard Bloom, in the first part of the book, the first two sections, appears to be pointing out all the reasons why Bryan Kohberger is the guy, why we can believe firmly that he's the guy, even to the point of telling us what Bryan Kohberger was thinking and what his emotions were when he showed up to kill, and what he was thinking as he walked through the house, and how he felt while doing the murders. Howard Bloom tells us all those things, which is pretty weird considering I am certain that Howard Bloom has not had an interview with Bryan Kohberger, and Bryan Kohberger has not confessed to Howard Bloom. But Howard Bloom's going to tell us not only what he thinks happened, but he'll tell us, almost like he was there, what Bryan Kohberger was thinking when he did the murders. So that's disturbing. I feel like, and I hope that you'll agree with me, I hope that you'll agree that when I tell you something, I tell you, this is my opinion. I don't know for sure. This is my speculation. Unlike Howard Bloom, who just seems to tell you, and Bryan Kohberger was thinking this, and his dad was thinking this, and he must have thought this, like he knows, like he was there. I try to tell you over and over again, ad nauseum, that when I'm talking to you, I'm telling you opinions. But some of us don't do that. Some of us rely on the confidence factor. I'm just going to tell you it happened this way, and you're going to believe me because I say it confidently. A cat named Pisces. That's cool. I had my cat on the video today. I made a video, chapter 14, which is not published public yet. It's going to be in a couple days published public. It's available right now for members only as a pre-look, but it's scheduled to come out on Thursday morning. Anyways, I had my little kitten, my brand new kitten, Xander. I called him Xander the crime fighting kitten. He was a little bastard this morning and tore me up. Yeah, not only does, this is what bothers me the most, Holly, about the Idaho 4 thing. Not only does Howard Bloom tell us in pretty exacting detail what Bryan Kohberger was thinking when he committed a crime he hasn't even been convicted of, but and I just covered this morning. That video will be live in a couple days, Thursday morning, chapter 14. I'm going to cover, chapter 13. Sorry, chapter 13, which is going to come out tomorrow morning. Chapter 13, I cover how Howard Bloom tells us a different order of events, of which order the people were killed in and what happened to them, than was aired on NBC Dateline's new hit piece on Bryan Kohberger called The Terrible Night on King Road, in which Howard Bloom appears in the NBC Dateline special, The Terrible Night on King Road. And Howard Bloom is quoted and on camera talking about the case that in that particular episode that just aired on Dateline has a different story about what happened that night than Howard Bloom's book that we're reviewing. So Howard Bloom maybe has changed his opinion about what happened that night, or maybe Howard Bloom is just lending his voice to the Dateline piece and they're just not pointing out that Howard Bloom's theory is different than their theory. I don't know. But it's funny that Howard Bloom is on Dateline with a new version, Dateline has a new version of what happened that night that contradicts what, in little details, what Howard Bloom writes in his book that we're reading. And yet Howard Bloom is on both places and considered by some to be an expert in the case of Idaho 4, while simultaneously having two different versions of what happened, and maybe more. There are so many versions about what happened in the Idaho 4 case that I don't know that anybody could have a clue what happened. Howard, Overtime with Rosie on YouTube's like, I lose it with Howard Bloom all the time. Yeah, I lose it too. I didn't realize how bad Howard Bloom was until I decided to start reading his book. I believed him to be a well-respected true crime novelist and would handle it as a great researcher. And I'm like, I can't wait to read this guy's book because he's going to tell me details that we've never heard before. He's going to really dig into the weeds. And so far, for the most part, I've been unimpressed. There have been some shocking moments, I think, where Howard Bloom touches on things that I've suspected for a while and he points it out. But again, then you have to draw the line. What do you believe that Howard Bloom says is true and what do you not believe? And am I just showing my own bias by saying, oh, this part Howard Bloom's correct on, this other part he's not? I'm showing my own bias on what I want to believe about Howard Bloom's story. Such as the Corner Club and what happened the night at the Corner Club between Kaylee and Jack DeCoeur. More questions, comments? I'm monitoring both channels, seeing what. Thank you for the hearts and all the gifts that have dropped in. It's been a great feeling for this afternoon. Have you ever thought about writing a book about your theories on stuff? Luigi Revolution, thank you for asking. I love writing. I love writing. I started writing a book 12 years ago on the mass shooting in Aurora, Colorado, called The Batman Conspiracy. That book is about half written, and I just can't seem to finish it because where I fail as a writer is I don't have the chops. Nobody's going to talk to me about their inside story, their unique perspective. Law enforcement's not going to talk to me because I'm a nobody. So because I'm a nobody, I feel like I can't do justice to a true crime thing. So I want to write a book. I absolutely would love to write a book about my theories on Luigi Mangione in particular. Maybe not the Idaho 4, although I've spent a lot of time with the Idaho 4, but certainly with the Luigi case, because I've been on the Luigi case from day one. So I would love to write a book about it. But again, I have no chops. Nobody gives a shit what I have to say, and it would offer nothing new other than just my view on things that everybody else has. A lot of what these true crime guys have going for them when they publish a book is they have some kind of insight that nobody has seen before. A personal interview with the killer, or a personal interview with the lead investigator. And that's why people buy those books. They buy those books because they're going to see a perspective that has never been shown to the public before. So if I don't have something like that with Luigi, I don't know how I write that book. But I would love to write a book. So thanks for asking. Why would Dylan have gone along with her housemates being murdered? So, Sherry, that's a great question. And so there's all, I don't know how to explain the answer, so let me try to do the best I can, Sherry. Why would Dylan have gone along with her housemates being murdered? I don't even know where to start. So, because, and I'm not being mocking, literally, first, the statement makes it sound like we are certain that Dylan is lying, and that she went along with being the murderer. So let me explain the various theories about Dylan. Dylan either literally didn't see anything, that's one possibility. Dylan wasn't even there in the house, that's another possibility. Dylan was in the house, but she has other reasons to lie about what she saw that don't involve knowing that there's a murder taking place. That's another explanation. Dylan knew that her roommates were about to be murdered, and that's why she was spared, because whoever came in there, she knew them personally, and they spared her because they weren't there for her, and she knew that. And maybe she even left the sliding glass door open. That's another possibility. Dylan could have been just a dumb kid, who made some dumb mistakes, and we, in retrospect, don't realize people do dumb things in situations that don't make sense. And maybe we'll never just make sense of it, and it was just understandable. So it's hard for me to answer the question other than what you might be asking, Sherry, is for those who believe, let me rephrase your statement and I'll take a stab at it, whether this was exactly your question or not. For those who believe that Dylan went along with the housemates being murdered, i.e., out of all those theories, if we focus on the theory that Dylan knew that her housemates were going to be murdered and she let somebody in and or covered for them so that the killer could get away, why would she do that? That's a whole thing, right? Why would she do that? There have been rumors that Dylan didn't like Kaylee. There's been rumors that Kaylee was the target of the attack and she was the primary person that was attacked. So did she just hate Kaylee? That would be contradictory to Howard Bloom's book that we're reading right now. Howard Bloom's indicated that Dylan and Kaylee went out to a sorority party the night before the killings together, and that Kaylee was Dylan's +1. If that's the case, it's hard to believe then necessarily that they were such bad enemies. There's been indications that Dylan was making phone calls and making sure that everyone was going to be back at the house by a certain time, which leads to the idea, did Dylan know that something was coming and she wanted to make sure all of her housemates were back at the house by a certain time, and she was checking on people, hey, when are you going to be back, so she can confirm, hey, everybody's back at the house. All of those are speculative questions, and so at the end of the day, I just ranted for a really long time telling you I don't know. I am not going to tell you Dylan was involved with the murders of her roommates or that she covered it up, but I could come up with reasons why that was the case if it happened that way, but I don't want to tell you that I think it happened that way or not it happened that way. Okay, I got a pinned question over here on TikTok. What happens to BK when he's found not guilty? That seems like it's a scary time for him. So Jackie, of course, your question's a little rhetorical because we don't know that BK is going to be found not guilty, but if he is found not guilty, it's going to be, no one knows the answer to that. Will there be plenty of people, let's say, because we're talking, let's say Bryan Kohberger is found not guilty and or hung jury, and it's ambiguous, but he's not going to be convicted. He's going to walk free. I feel like in America, there is enough people who are 100% convinced that Bryan Kohberger is the killer, that if he walks free, someone's going to feel it's their duty to get justice for the girls. And if I were Bryan Kohberger, I would want to leave the country because he's probably not safe in the country if he does get out. Because there's millions of people, I think, who are convinced before trial begins Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and that if he got off, it'll be a technicality, a killer will be on the loose, those poor girls need vengeance and they need revenge, and somebody will take it in their hands to do it for the girls. So my guess is if Bryan Kohberger were to find a situation in which he's found not guilty and or acquitted or hung jury or whatever, if I were him, I'd be leaving the country. But that's just me. Hello, I just got finished watching your video on chapter 12. Very interesting. Thank you, Just Amber. I think that was the chapter on the Corner Club. I talked about that a little bit today, about the Corner Club. I kind of lost my shit, don't you think? Just Amber, did I lose my shit on the Corner Club video? I think I was pretty hot, or at least I was animated on that one, I think. But thank you for watching, and thank you for letting me know that you watched. I got chapter 13 coming out tomorrow morning, chapter 14 coming out the day after that. Oh, somebody else pinned a comment, I think. Oh no, somebody followed the creator. Chibi, thank you for the follow. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Jackie was like, my first pinned comment. Yeah, thank you to my moderators. My moderators are on the ball. Just a little, don't worry. I do that myself. As far as ranting and losing your shit. Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of my thing. I'm very, very passionate about some of my opinions, and I think for those who follow who like my channel, what they like is the passion. I'm not faking this shit. I'm not half-assing this shit. I'm not doing it for the clickbait. If when I go on a rant, you can tell. I think you can tell it's personal. This is how I really feel, and it's deeply emotional. Let me tell you an example. Oh my gosh. This is okay. Since there's not an immediate question, let me tell you an example. I was watching yesterday. I was watching the recap 1 hour, kind of like what happened in the Karen Reed trial today. And Karen Reed's not a story I cover, so we're not going to stay on this long. Please don't ask me a lot of questions about Karen Reed because I don't know a lot of Karen Reed stuff. I just know that people have been saying, hey, you really should look into Karen Reed. It's in your wheelhouse. Why is it in your wheelhouse? Because I focus on, especially when it comes to police corruption, law enforcement corruption, which I guess I just said the same thing twice in two different ways, judicial corruption, and those kind of things. So people are like, man, this is right in your wheelhouse. But here's what happened to me on the Karen thing that reminded me about how passionate I am. They had a judge on this show. I forgot what the show is called, but it was had a couple of talking heads, and they had a judge and I think an attorney, or district attorney maybe, who were talking about the Karen Reed case and what their opinions were of things that they saw in court that day. And at some point, a true crime follower, they were taking questions from the audience, and so like on YouTube, they're like, hey, here's a question somebody came in. And it was a legitimate, honest question, in my opinion, an honest question. What happens to Karen Reed's nice Lexus SUV if it turns out that she is found not guilty because they've torn her car apart and it's essentially destroyed? What happens to that? And literally, in my opinion, the judge and the DA got a huge smile on their face and kind of laughed as they said, oh, she'll get her car back in exactly the condition it's in right now, which is completely destroyed. And there's no promise or commitment on law enforcement's part to put her car back together and give it to her in the condition they took it from. And they thought it was funny. Like, they literally thought it was funny. Oh, she'll get her car back. Yeah, you're right. If she's found not guilty, she'll get her car back in the condition it's in today. We destroyed her car and she'll get it back. And I'm like, this is why people hate and have lost trust in law enforcement and the judicial system. It's not funny that somebody can be found not guilty and you can still destroy their shit and then laugh about it like you think it's funny. And they even brought up, hey, if your house gets in a search warrant, they can toss your house and break all kinds of shit in their house, and they're not required to clean up your house either. We could just come destroy your stuff. And I'm like, this is why people can't stand you. This is why people don't have a distrust in law enforcement, because you somehow think it's funny to stick your boot in someone's face, and even when they're innocent, go, well, lick the boot anyways. All right, out. Sherry said that Birdie suggested my page and I love your opinions on the case. Thank you so much. Birdie has been a great supporter of me, and we're trying to work it out. Birdie and I are trying to work it out. He and I text back and forth on a pretty regular basis, trying to work out how we're gonna make it work. But I respect that Birdie's audience is 10 times as big as mine, and so whatever Birdie's got going on, I'm going to have to take second fiddle to that, and I need to find a way to work into his show, and we haven't quite worked out how I can be a part of that thing, because I wouldn't want him to stop things that he's doing when he's got a big thing going on and people love it. Thank you, Luigi, for not being a bootlicker. It should disgust us all, that kind of attitude. The cops used leaf blower in the snow and put evidence in red Solo cups from the neighbor. If I was on the jury, I would have voted not guilty because of that. Those cops get away with crap investigating. Yes, just Amber. And that's one of the things. That's one of the things that the judge even said. They had a judge, was it a Massachusetts judge, who was saying, unfortunately, police corruption is a thing. Which, thank God he said that. A lot of people, I feel like a lot of Americans honestly don't believe that police are corrupt or that they can be corrupt. And I should say, not all police are corrupt. In fact, I would hope most police aren't corrupt. But police corruption is a thing. It's a real thing. And America needs to wake up to police corruption is a lot bigger than you think. And basically, this judge said the same thing. Unfortunately, police corruption is a thing. There are a lot of bad cops. You know, he didn't say that, but he said police corruption is a thing. Unfortunately. But he said, you know what, overall, our judicial system is pretty good. I don't know if I agree with that, but there you have it. Pink Iguana Creators found me from Birdie. Holy crap. Like, I need to send Birdie a bottle of wine. Say, thanks, dude. Like, you've introduced a lot of people to me. I don't know if he's into wine. I know he's into Birdie bombs. Birdie bombshells. Anyways, Birdie's been good to me. So thank you so much for letting me know that you dropped by with Birdie. Tell Birdie, if you get a chance, that I have expressed to my audience how appreciative I am that Birdie has given me the opportunity to go live with him and get in front of his audience, and that some of his audience has found me because of him, and that I appreciate that very, very, very much. And again, likewise, people, go check out Birdie Bombshells if you haven't already. Again, because his audience is 10 times bigger than mine, you probably already know about him. But if you haven't, go check out Birdie Bombshells, TikTok and YouTube. I think he's starting to, like me, he's starting to focus a bit more heavily on the YouTube side, because we're both long-winded people. We're not short content kind of people. So Birdie also has the channel over there on YouTube, and you should check that out. I'm very appreciative for the true crime community you're all building. We've needed this. I thank you very much. I feel like too often mainstream media is always on the side of telling you why the guilty is guilty and why he needs to go down, and too few people are standing up for the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And so I don't want to ever have to apologize for presuming somebody innocent until proven guilty. That's the bedrock, supposedly, of our legal system: innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And all too often, people are not affording the accused the presumption of innocence. So I will continue to do that. And even if I end up being wrong, and the person that I'm kind of giving the benefit of the doubt gets convicted, I'm supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt. We are supposed to give them the benefit of the doubt. And at the end of the day, if it turns out they're guilty, then they should get their just punishment. And I'm not condoning somebody walk for something that they did, with the possible weird ass exception of the Luigi Mangione case. And we covered that a little bit. Enough said about that. But generally speaking, if I'm wrong and I'm saying, hey, there's a reason to believe that Bryan Kohberger didn't do it, and if it turns out at the end of the day he did do it, I don't want Bryan Kohberger to walk as a killer just because he should walk. Neither, however, can law enforcement do what I think they're doing in Bryan Kohberger's case, just as they're doing it in Luigi's case, which is planting evidence, fabricating evidence, doing anything they can because they know who the guilty party is, and they're going to make sure that person goes down. That's horseshit. That is illegal. Law enforcement should be held to a higher standard. And unfortunately, there's a part of me that would say I would rather a guilty party walk free if that's what you have to do to get the guilty party. Because we have no protections in America. If you're allowed to decide ahead of time who's guilty and then make the evidence fit it and put them away, then anybody can be put away, innocent or guilty. So maybe a few guilty people might have to walk for you to get the point. You can't just plant shit on people and because you know they're the bad guy. Whew. All right, Paula, Birdie speaks highly of me. Excellent. I hope that you will find I speak positively about Birdie as well. Yeah, he's a great guy. Have you heard that Idaho is one of the just a few states that doesn't require law enforcement to save evidence? I didn't hear that. That's an interesting one. Just Amber says over on YouTube, I call it the injustice system. I think it's horrible. One of the biggest problems, in my opinion, are grand juries. Yeah. Thank you for chiming in there. Overtime with Rosie, a comment before that. Have you looked into the Sandra Birchmore case? It's from a similar area to Karen Reed. I have not. Overtime with Rosie. I have not looked into that. I'm kind of casually, I say this with a grain of salt, I am kind of casually looking for a third case to follow, because there's times when it's slow in both my cases that I'm following where I don't have anything to say, and I end up doing just live Q&A sessions like this, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I got nothing really to say. What are we going to talk about? So having a third case would help me always have something going on. The horrible part about that is when Bryan Kohberger's trial starts, I'm going to be full bore watching 8 hours a day of testimony. When Luigi's case starts, I'm going to be watching full 8 hour a day testimony in his case. And so do I have time to do that? You can only watch so many days of testimony in one day. So I don't know how to handle that yet. I'm still working on it. I was blown away. Idaho law enforcement isn't legally obligated to preserve homicide evidence. Yeah. Along that lines, Alexandra, everybody wants to know, and I understand there's arguments on both sides, why the damn house was torn down. I understand the logic. Oh, it's going to be traumatic for college students who are going to walk past that house every day on the way to school, and maybe it'll end up being some kind of weird, like, freaking sick attraction where people want to break into the house and say they were in the house where the killings happened, and it would just be a huge nightmare to try to keep it preserved. But certainly there could be a way, with all the money that funneled into Idaho to cover this case, that they could have preserved that crime scene, could have put up a brick or a barrier around the house and left it intact. Them tearing down the house so that the jury can't walk the house if they have questions was itself a huge problem, in my opinion. Right? And then Dateline drops the bombshell that the killer, after killing Ethan and Xana, sat down in a chair and left a bloody print in the chair. New information. But is the jury ever going to see the chair? Are they going to be able to compare? Are they going to be able to, were there fibers tested? Did the person leave any fibers of their clothes on the chair? Like, we all are left completely in the dark about how extensive the investigation into the forensics was, and we're just given basic information. And over again, all we hear is about the one piece of DNA that, well, Bryan Kohberger's DNA is at the crime scene, which apparently equates to one piece of trace DNA on a knife snap that may or may not have been left at the crime or planted at the crime, if you believe the defense. So it's crazy. And I feel like the jury should have been able to, and should have gone to see the house in person, to walk it themselves, to be able to hear things like how thin are the walls, what could have been heard. Is it possible? If I was in that jury, I would want somebody to be up on the top floor and to talk at a normal sound and see if you can hear it from Dylan's room. Then to maybe do a scream just to test and see if I can hear it from Dylan's room. I would want to do those things if I was a jury, but they don't get to do that. They're going to get a 3D model, as some people call it, the dollhouse model. Yeah, Just Amber says, how in the world would they know it was the killer who sat in the chair? There's a lot of things that, how do they know? Just Amber. That's Just Amber, that's just scratching the surface. If you remember, the Dateline NBC said, here's what happened, we think. Now granted, they did say, this is the best that we understand happened. But out of all the questions, the killer went up to kill Maddie. How do they know that? Kaylee woke up, and so she was quickly dispatched. It was a noisy affair, but apparently Dylan didn't hear it. Xana was in the kitchen. How do they know that? Xana came up the stairs to investigate the noise. How do they know that? The killer was surprised by Xana and then gave chase, leaving the knife sheath behind in a hurry as he chased her down the stairs. How the fuck did they know that? Dropping the knife sheath in the process. How do they know that? Chased her into her room. But apparently, the noisy event of people being murdered and drawing Xana's attention to the upstairs floor and having her go investigate, then running down the screen. Did she run down the stairs to Ethan's room and her room? Did she run down there in silence? Or was she screaming that she was being chased by a killer, right? None of that makes sense. None of that makes sense. But this is what we think happened. And then he went in there and he quickly dispatches Ethan, who's just sleeping and passed out drunk in the bed, even though we've been told earlier he had defensive wounds. Now we're being told he didn't have any defensive wounds because he was killed quickly in one fell swoop, and then the killer carved up his legs. How the hell do they know that? That's never been released before. And then the killer must have been exhausted. An adrenaline jump came over him. How the fuck do they know that? And then sat down and took a break in a chair and leaving a bloody print behind. How do they know that? Like, this is... None of that's been released, right? And then what happens is somebody comes out like Hitler and says somebody's been talking to the press. Things got out into the press that weren't supposed to be ever revealed. And now it leaves us all wondering, what part of that Dateline hit piece was true? Was the only thing Hitler's mad about is the cell phone data that was leaked by the FBI to Dateline? Was the only thing Hitler was mad about was the cell phone pictures allegedly off of Bryan Kohberger's phone of the hoodie that had never been seen before? Was it his search material that was only seen before that was what Hitler was upset about? Was it the video footage, the crystal clear video footage that nobody has seen to this day of the car, which was more razor sharp than we've ever seen? Was that what Hitler was mad about? Or do we have to speculate now, was it true that the killer sat down in that room, or that Ethan's legs were carved up, and that's what he's mad about? So now it's leaving us true crime community in a gag ordered case to even have even more questions and more confusion. So, you got me on a rant, Amber. You got me on a rant. All right, we got about 15 minutes tops before I'm going to be wrapping up. Let's have some more questions. Surviving roommates in paper bags. What does that mean? I do not know what that means. I did not hear about the paper bags. The carved legs freaked me out because it was a huge rumor at the beginning. So Alexander, let me address something about the carved legs, if we can do this without getting in trouble for being graphic. So I'm just going off of what was revealed in the Dateline NBC piece. So let me point this out. Two things were said in that documentary that keyed in on me. One, Ethan was taken out with a arterial cut. It was an extremely quick artery that was taken out. Now, let me reiterate. Howard Bloom says in his book, Ethan had his jugular sliced. That was the artery that was sliced, was the jugular. Okay? So that is an artery. But there's one other artery, and pay attention, I'm going to try to be careful about how I say this. There's one other artery that people who are taught in knife fighting, I know, I've got a friend who was taught in knife fighting just in regular self-defense classes. They also apparently, and I've confirmed this, teach this in prison on how to quickly take somebody out in prison in a knife fight, how to quickly get a kill in prison if you want to take somebody out and kill them. And then there's so somebody who trained in special elite forces, say a paratrooper, for example, and taught in knife fighting, are taught to go for what? Arteries. One of the major arteries is inside the groin, as close up to the groin as you can get. If you get up, I don't want to be super graphic, but if you get up close enough into the groin, there is no recovery. If you slice close enough to the groin, you cannot repair it. You will bleed out. There is no saving that person. If you cut low enough, you can put a tourniquet on and you can maybe lose a limb and save the human being. But if you cut up close enough inside the groin, there's no saving the human being. So some people who are taught knife fighting skills are taught to go for the inside groin. So then the question becomes, from my mind, do the two comments go hand in hand? Ethan received a deep arterial cut that ended his life essentially almost instantly, guaranteeing it, and his leg was carved up. Was it because the cut was on the inside inner thigh groin because it was somebody who was trained in knife fighting? So that's my question. The artery in the groin is the femoral artery. The femoral artery, I believe, is what's inside the groin. They know it because closest source of the investigation say so, apparently. That's good enough for Dateline. Yeah, and so, you know, the $1 million question, the question that Hitler is going after is, who are the inside sources? Because Hitler seems to agree. He stated flat out. And by the way, I want to take a personal beef with the people who keep trying to say, I think the defense leaked the information to Dateline because they're trying to throw the case out. Let's keep this two things in mind. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Hitler doesn't seem to have any sympathy for the defense. Hitler, as a judge who's supposed to be impartial, seems to have the attitude on the stand that this is a done deal, Koberger's guilty, and let's just get the trial over with. I've never seen, I don't think, a judge that I've watched look as more partial to the prosecution as Hitler. He seems partial. And yet, despite Hitler's apparent prejudice for the prosecution, what did Hitler say after the Dateline piece? He didn't say somebody involved in this case is leaking information. No, Hitler specifically stated someone currently or formerly in law enforcement or the prosecution has leaked information, and I want to know who it is, and we're going to hold them accountable. Hitler gave no credence to the idea that this came from the defense, and yet all the time I'm hearing people online say, I think that leak came from the defense. Why do you think that? You know why you think that? Because you believe that Koberger's guilty, and you will believe anything that makes it look like Koberger's team is up to bullshit trying to get him off for a murder, and so you have to believe that if there's a leak, it's coming from the other side. It's got to be coming from the defense. But Hitler, who again seems to be very, very, very much believing before the trial starts that he's supposed to be impartial about, that Koberger's guilty, is saying this came from law enforcement or the prosecution, and I want to know who it is. So I almost would say, if Hitler thinks it came from the prosecution or law enforcement, it came from the prosecution or law enforcement. He did not even suspect it came from the defense. So I don't know why people keep insisting that they think it came from the defense. Hitler doesn't, and Hitler's on your side if you think Koberger's guilty. Just Amber says there was a YouTube creator who said Ethan's legs were cut and details about Kaylee. This was before Bryan was arrested. I think she said the wife of an FBI agent told her. Yeah, there are some gruesome details I've heard about Kaylee's injuries in particular that seem to be corroborated by things that Steve Goncalves had said to the media before he started to shut up about it. That indicate that Kaylee was the target, in my opinion. I hope we find out who leaked the info, Alexander says. Yes, I hope so as well, and I do hope that Hitler does hold them accountable, and I do. And here's the thing. For those who want, for those who believe that Koberger is guilty and want Koberger to be found guilty, I would be a little bit nervous if I were you, because if Hitler finds out who leaked this information, and if the person who leaked that information is a critical piece of the law enforcement puzzle, meaning somebody in the FBI who has a critical piece of information, and if that is coming from them, the leak is coming from them, that person will not be allowed to testify in court. If Hitler exposes who it is, everything that person has said about this case and done work that they've done in the case will not be admissible in court. That person will not go on the stand. So you've got to hope, if you believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty and that somebody in law enforcement has leaked information to the media, that person was never going to be on the stand, because they won't now. If they get identified, that person won't make it to the stand. They're basically already impeached. Their credibility is gone. So somebody said, at Devil's Advocates. I'm Devil's Advocates. What about me? Did you have a comment? Did I miss something? I'm looking up to see if I missed a comment. All right, any other questions? We got about 9 minutes at max, and then I will wrap up. This has been a lively discussion. Like last time, it's pretty cool. This conversation started out really low key, not a lot going on. Next thing, all of a sudden, somebody asks a question, and bam! Off to the races we go. So thank you for doing that. That is a pleasant joy that the conversation has taken off and been lively. So before I wrap up and tell you what's going on for the week so that you can know what to look for and what you might want to check out in my channel, I'll give it a couple more questions from anybody that has questions about Luigi Mangione or Bryan Kohberger. I bounced back and forth. Hopefully you're okay with that style. Some nights I will have it only be Luigi or only Koberger, so that those people who really don't give a shit about the other case can move on. But tonight, I didn't have anything untapped, and so it's just open back and forth. And I kind of like the open back and forth thing, especially when there's not a lot of dedicated stuff to talk about on one side or the other. Let's just have open discussion. So it looks like I'm getting likes and spams and hearts and gifts on both sides. Thank you so much for the support. Any other questions, comments from the Peanut Gallery? You are not. That sounds disrespectful. The Peanut Gallery. I've just learned to talk about that. Any comments? No comments from the peanut gallery. Anyways, anybody have any comments for me, questions for me on the way out? Burning question that you want my opinion about at all? I don't have Xander the crime fighting kitty with me today. I did a video with him this morning. It'll air on Thursday, I think, where the crime fighting kitty tore the shit out of me on camera, jumped on my back and hung on my skin about 5 times, maybe 4 times. Anyways, next Luigi court date. If you look on my screen, next Luigi court date right here. I'm trying to highlight it for you. I'll try to center it over here on TikTok a little bit better. Thursday, the next scheduled is Thursday, June 26th at 9 a.m. Now keep in mind, however, to be determined Commonwealth in Pennsylvania. The judge, somebody has to rule on whether or not that arrest in Altoona was legal or not. So while the next scheduled court appearance is June 26th at 9 a.m. in the state of New York versus Luigi Mangione, and there may or may not be cameras in that one, we have the to be determined. So I don't want you to say, oh, Mr. Advocate's lied because he said the next date was 6/26, so I went out and did something else until 6/25, and then I found out I missed the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, that's because it's a to be determined date. We don't know when they're going to hit that. All right, about 6 minutes, 5 minutes. I'm getting ready to maybe wrap up. They're brothers that have refused to talk with police regarding Bryan's case. Christopher Brown is asking, are there brothers that are refusing to talk with police regarding Bryan's case? Let me clarify. Great question, Christopher Brown from TikTok. Let me see if I can clarify what I think you are talking about. Okay, so during the investigative genealogy DNA search of Bryan Kohberger, trying to find out whose DNA was at the crime scene, the Othram Labs was trying to develop a profile on the DNA left on the snap and match it to somebody. They ended up narrowing it down to a family of 4 brothers. This might be what you're talking about. A family of 4 brothers. Let me state it the same way I heard it stated when the first time I heard this. None of those 4 brothers have the last name of Koberger. None of them are related to Koberger. The profile that DNA was matching up to were 4 brothers, not by the name of Koberger. They're not Koberger's brothers. They're not Koberger's family. The FBI allegedly asked Othram Lab to put pressure on the 4 brothers to go and to willingly submit their DNA to a ancestry database so they can continue to work on the connection to Bryan Kohberger. Well, okay, to whoever it is. They asked the Othram to put pressure on the families to go put their DNA voluntarily into a national database so they can get more information on that DNA. Allegedly, and I can't remember the source and I don't have it pinned on my site, unfortunately, someone did approach one of the 4 brothers at least and asked, hey, would you be willing to submit your DNA to a database so that we can do some further testing? And essentially the answer was, go F yourself. No. So whoever the 4 brothers were, who I don't believe have ever been identified to the public, that's the $1 million question. Who are the 4 brothers who aren't Kobergers? Apparently, when they were approached to say, hey, could you voluntarily give us your DNA, told them to go F themselves, essentially. So that's probably what you're talking about. All right, so Just Amber asked, so if the leaked and is Nick Balance, who did the cast and timing advanced records, will all of that be suppressed? Does that mean no Cy-Ray, which would mean they won't be able to prove where he was? So you're absolutely, Just Amber, you're absolutely going down the logic path that I was. If early on Ann Taylor was hinting left and right without actually saying it, that something is suspicious about Nick Balance from the FBI. Over and over again, she indicated that somebody inside the FBI, Nick Balance, was being over aggressive and was making up stuff and hiding stuff and manipulating the data. And she called out Nick Balance for manipulating the data in such a way that it would make it look like Bryan Kohberger was guilty while ignoring stuff that would make that would be exculpatory to Bryan Kohberger, meaning stuff that would make him look not guilty. So then Ann Taylor brought in Cy-Ray to say Cy-Ray literally trains law enforcement, including FBI, on how to use advanced timing records. You could literally say he literally wrote the book on how investigations are done on advanced timing records. And what Cy Ray said was, Nick Balance, you couldn't have got the information that you had legally. I know how it's obtained. I literally wrote the book on how advanced timing records work. So the fact that you are putting slideshows together showing how it relates Bryan Kohberger to the cell phone tower pings and the advanced timing records, but hiding that the advanced timing records will show us what direction Bryan Kohberger was driving, and you'll see that he was driving away from the crime scene, not to the crime scene, then you are manipulating stuff and trying to hide stuff. So to Amber's question, if it turns out that Nick Balance is the one who is also leaking information to Dateline NBC about the cast data or the advanced timing records, as they call it, then yeah, Nick Balance isn't going to be able to testify, in my opinion. If they identify him as the leaker, then his whole slideshow showing that Bryan Kohberger was driving around is going to go out the window. And then you're going to be left with them having to explain why Bryan Kohberger, why that white Elantra that we can't identify, because you can't see the plates, you can't see who's driving it, you can't see how many people are in the car, and there's no continuous footage of the vehicle. So as the defense has pointed out, boy, I'm on a rant. As the defense has pointed out, you can't show the jury a video of a car for 1 second and say that's suspect vehicle 1, and then show them another video from a different camera 3 seconds or 4 seconds later and say there's suspect vehicle 1 again, because that's for the jury to decide if that's the same car. That could be a separate car that you're just identifying and telling them, hey, that's the same car. You're telling them it's the same car. That's not your job. That's the jury's job to decide if they think that's the same car or not. So you telling the jury that here you see suspect vehicle 1, and here you see suspect vehicle 1, and here you see suspect vehicle 1. You're prejudicing the jury. You need to drop that language and let the jury decide if that's the same car you see every single time. And you're right. If Nick Balance can't testify to the cell phone data, they're probably in deep shit on that part. Then you're left with, well, his DNA is at the scene. Well, the prosecution doesn't even want to work with the DNA because they don't want to admit how they got the DNA profile. So they've stated, we've got enough information in this case to prosecute without the DNA. We don't really need the DNA. So if you're going to toss out the DNA, which everybody says makes it's a foregone conclusion, Bryan Kohberger was there, his DNA was there. If you're not going to bring that up in case because you don't want them to talk about where it came from, and if you can't bring up the cell phone coverage showing that Bryan Kohberger was stalking the victims and driving around the neighborhood, working up the courage to go in and kill them because the cell phone data has been tossed out, what do you have for a case? The guy's a creepy incel and doesn't do well with women. When we know he was at a pool party and he picked up multiple women's phone numbers and some girl stayed the night at his house because she had romantic feelings for him and called him first. Like, the whole case is going to be in big, big trouble if the right person, if you will, or the wrong person, depending on your perspective, gets thrown out and can't testify because they're leaking stuff to the press. All right, people. On that note, I have spent my emotions. The fever pitch has gone up. I've had a great time. It's been super exciting. I hope you enjoyed the show, the off the cuff, open questions and answers. Thank you everyone who have dropped in from Birdie. Please tell Birdie that I appreciate him and that I talk positively about him as well. I'm working on getting on Birdie's show as soon as I can. Mondays seem to be the night that we're trying to work it out for the last 2 Mondays in a row. It just hasn't panned out for us. He says that we're still planning on trying to work this out. We're going to try to figure it out, people. Let Birdie know that I say things positively. In fact, go follow Birdie Bombshells on YouTube and TikTok if you're not already doing so. Those who came in to saw me from Birdie, let Birdie know, love the guy and love his stuff. We don't always see eye to eye on the theories he goes down, but I love the fact that he goes down so many different theories. He's got a very open mind. Open mind and critical thinking goes hand in hand. You can't be open and honest with yourself if you're not willing to entertain all of the things, and Birdie entertains all of the ideas. More so than me. I tend to find the ones that speak to my gut as the most credible, and I stay with those like a pit bull. He will scattershot a bunch. That's not a negative to Birdie, and so I love it. I love going onto his show and hearing new ideas. Like, shit, man, I didn't think about that. And if my gut tells me he's onto something, I'll dig further. But that's the only difference between Birdie and I, as far as that goes, is that he will go a little further down the rabbit hole on things that I'm not ready to go down. I may be pocketing him in the back of my brain and thinking about him, but I'm not going down. Real quick, let's look at the week ahead. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm doing a weekly live on Wednesday night like I always do. Tomorrow morning, a video of my Idaho 4 book case, the book series on When the Night Comes Falling by Howard Bloom is going to be released to the public. It's available right now for members only as a pre-look ahead, but tomorrow it goes live to the public. That's chapter 13, I think, chapter 13 tomorrow in the Idaho 4. Thursday morning at 12 p.m. or sorry, Thursday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning or so, chapter 14 of the Idaho Bloom or the Idaho 4 Howard Bloom When the Night Comes Falling book series will publish on my YouTube page. Again, it's available now for members, but it's going to go live on Thursday morning. Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time, I'm doing my live again like this. And then Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is my regular Friday Night Live, followed by the after party. The after party, what is that? That's where we have an 18 and older, you have to be 18, on Discord, adults only, on my backup channel on YouTube called The Devil's Advocates Backstage. It's the backstage party, after dark party. We have a few drinks, we talk more bluntly, we drop a lot more F-bombs. You, the audience, gets to participate on Discord and actually take the microphone and talk freely with nobody moderating and telling you when you can and can't speak. It's a free-for-all. And we do that on after the show on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So the show is at 6 p.m. The live show is at 6 p.m. for the public, where we be good and we behave ourselves and we don't violate any community guidelines. And then afterwards, we shut that down, reopen the backstage pass in the Discord channel, and then we take the gloves off and we talk very bluntly about that and other cases like P. Diddy, Karen Reed, whatever the hell's on your mind. We can talk about spiritualism. We can talk about whatever the hell's on your mind. Last and foremost, thank you all for coming. Check out my website, devilsadvocates.info. Like, follow, subscribe, all those things that they say. It's not just something we say as content creators. It matters a lot. I'm approaching 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. That's a huge mark on YouTube that I have been waiting for, but it's probably not going to happen this week. But if you haven't followed me, please help me get to that 1,000 mark. I'm at like 928 or something like that. Let's get to 1,000 together. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I will see you tomorrow night maybe at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.